Hi guys, I hope you've had a good weekend. I've had a tiring one, I have to say, but I hope you guys have had a relaxing one. So I wanted to just go straight into this and talk about the King's coronation that's coming up on the 6th of May. What's been on YouTube and what's been in various articles, and this one is from the Daily Express, it's about King Charles having a standoff allegedly with the church, basically a disagreement about how diverse the ceremony for the coronation should be. So King Charles is known to be quite inclusive, and people call him the woke king because essentially back in the 70s, he's always talked about climate change and organic food and organic farming before it was really a thing. And a lot of the sort of things he stands for, people label as woke. So they say that he was woke before woke was a thing, which is in direct contrast to the way that he's portrayed by Harry and Meghan. So anyway, so he's known as being very inclusive, and it's been known for a long time. I mean, I personally knew since even the Queen was still alive for many, many years that the monarch is the defender of the Christian faith. So the monarch is the supreme leader of the Church of England, which is obviously a state church of England. And you have the Church of Scotland and so forth. And obviously the most senior leader of the Church of England is the Archbishop of Canterbury. And it's an Anglican Protestant faith. And, I'm not going to go into history, but it used to be Catholicism. And then the Pope was the supreme leader of the Catholic Church. And then obviously under the Reformation, Henry VIII, it all sort of changed. And then the king became the supreme leader. And then the Anglican Church and the Protestantism became the state church. And, if anyone knows the history of King Henry VIII and Mary and Edward and Elizabeth I, you'll know that at that time, the Tudor time, there was a lot of tension in England about whether the country was going to be Catholic or Protestant or whatever. So it goes back. Anyway, so I've known for some time that obviously the monarch is the supreme leader of the Church of England. And King Charles had always wanted to be, instead of the defender of the faith, meaning the Christian faith, he wanted to be the defender of faiths. So he wants his coronation and his contract with the people, as it were, his oath, to be more diverse and more inclusive. So what's happening here, as you can see from this article, is that allegedly there's a coronation impasse. I'm not sure if it's such an impasse, but there we are. Charles sparks standoff with church leaders over diverse ceremony. I don't necessarily think it's that drastic. I don't think there's a standoff, but okay, whatever. So King Charles's assistance on faiths outside of Christianity playing a role in diverse coronation ceremony has sparked a deadlock between the palace and church leaders. So what's happening is that King Charles is at an impasse with Church of England leaders over the role of non-Christian faiths in the coronation ceremony. Charles, who wants the ceremony to better reflect the modern monarchy, has insisted that figures of Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, and other faith leaders should participate in the event. However, this has prompted a deadlock with church officials who warn that the move would clash with centuries-old canon law, according to the Mail of Sunday. And as you can see, it goes on to say that religious affairs commentator Catherine Pepminster revealed the tensions could wreak havoc in the ceremony. And she said the row has delayed the release of the coronation's order of service with less than 28 days to go. Church officials reportedly claim that canon law bars non-Christian faith leaders from reading out prayers during the service. However, Buckingham Palace sources reject any claims of a delay. Okay, so I think this is probably right that, it's not causing that much of a big deal, but obviously the press has got hold of it. So it says here, Lambeth Palace, on behalf of the Archbishop of Canterbury and Buckingham Palace, stated details about the coronation service will be released in due course. The role of other faiths in the coronation comes as Charles is expected to recognise that he serves all religious faiths and not just the Church of England when he speaks at the ceremony. While Charles will remain the defender of faith, it is understood that the monarch will speak about his commitment to multiple religions. The King has long expressed a desire to represent the UK's increasingly diverse population, as I've said, and then you'll see it goes on. And the article continues, so please do read the article. So what I want to say, first of all, is that it's not coming from religious leaders. So we don't have senior rabbis and senior imams and senior priests in the Hindu temple saying that they should have a role. It's not coming from leaders. It's coming from Prince Charles's wish to make his subjects feel included, and that the role of the monarchy and his coronation and his reign is not just about a particular type of people, that he's not representing a particular type of people. He obviously wants to represent his whole subject. And England, as everyone will know, Britain, United Kingdom, the Commonwealth, is a very, very diverse place, despite what a certain couple might try to allege. It is a very diverse place. Now, there is a video I just wanted to show. Okay, so this is on GBNews, and Calvin Robinson Hare is a deacon, I believe, in the Anglican Church, and he is interviewing David Starkey, Dr. David Starkey, who is a renowned and well-established, well-experienced historian. And I just want to show a short clip where he is asked whether the coronation is an exclusively Christian celebration. And this is David Starkey's answer, just so that everyone can get an idea about how Christianity plays a role in the coronation, how the two are mutually exclusive.
Would you describe the coronation as an explicitly Christian service?
The coronation is utterly and absolutely explicitly Christian in the sense of the body of the service. The notions of anointing, well, the notions of anointing, which is the heart of all of this, are not even specifically Christian. They're Old Testament. They go back to the anointing by the prophet Samuel of the first king of the Israelites, the first king of the Jews, Saul, again, the great anthem that will be sung after the king's anointing, with the music by Handel. Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anointed Solomon king. And this element is absolutely embedded at the heart of the coronation service. It's then, of course, adapted with the Reformation, and more particularly with the Glorious Revolution of 1689, to a specifically Protestant service. But so that we really begin, Calvin, correctly at looking at the coronation in context, the coronation is really two things. It's a service of consecration of a monarch who, at least technically, is divinely ordained, the DG by the grace of God, the defender of the faith, fidei defensor. But the coronation begins with something else. It's not just consecration, it's contract. It begins with the swearing of oaths, which are about the government of the country, and particularly the government of the country according to the laws passed in Parliament. So it's these two elements.
Okay. And
Dr. Starkey obviously explains that very well. So you can see that the ceremony itself is very Christian in terms of its hymns, its process, in terms of the fact that we are anointing a king, or where that comes from, in terms of its prayers, in terms of the fact that it takes place in Westminster Abbey, the fact that it's conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury, so and also the king's oath to be the defender of the Anglican faith, and also to involve the Scottish Church in that, as well as the Church of England. So it is very, very Christian in its manifestation and in its purpose. And then obviously Calvin Robinson goes on to ask David Starkey, well, what about, we're now in this sort of inclusive modern age, and so forth and so forth. So you can see the rest of it is like 18 minutes. So, please do watch the rest of this interview. But I just wanted to touch upon that part, because David Starkey explains how the coronation is explicitly Christian from its foundations and its core very well. So I just wanted to show you that. So, okay. So the dispute is this. In one hand, it's a very Christian celebration. It's a very Christian process. And then on the other hand, Britain is so diverse and the Commonwealth is so diverse, and the king is the head of state of the Commonwealth countries as well as the United Kingdom. So within the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, there are people of all different shapes and sizes, all different colours, all different faiths. Should other faiths be recognised at the coronation ceremony, which is fundamentally a Christian ceremony, and should they be recognised in the way that Prince Charles wants, which is that he wants to be, instead of the defender of the Christian faith, he wants to be the defender of all faiths, and he would like heads of these different faiths, so leaders of these different faiths like Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, to come and to come and read prayers in the service. So that is my understanding is the issue here. So, okay, a lot of people are criticising Prince Charles and saying, well, he's so woke. This is just woke. You know, this is making the coronation into a joke. It's making the coronation ceremony into a woke ceremony. And he's not abiding by, you know, the traditions and the history of this ceremony. And he's making it into this woke spectacle. Okay, so I personally don't think it's that serious. But I think that there needs to be more thought about this, because I come from a family that have a lot of diverse religions. And I don't think it is necessarily that easy to say to a Muslim religious leader, or a Jewish religious leader, or a Hindu religious leader, to come and read either a Christian prayer or their own prayer in a Christian ceremony, or like in a church, right? It just is, that does not seem to me to sit well with those leaders and their followers, so their religious followers. Like, for example, would it sit well with an Orthodox Muslim to read out an Islamic prayer on a podium in the front of Westminster Abbey, surrounded by statues, you know, paintings, crosses, and so forth? That does not match well. You know, it just totally conflicts with my understanding of how Muslims pray and the environment in which they are supposed to pray in. So it just doesn't match. So I think there needs to be more thought there. Also, these particular religions. So what are you going to do? Are you going to pick the top 4 religions? You know, what about all the other religions? What about Mormonism? You know, what about, you know, Sikhism? What about all these other religions? You know, there are a lot of different diverse religions. What about them? Are they going to feel included, or are they going to feel marginalized? You open up a can of worms when you only sort of invite the few but not the others. You know, what about tribal religions in Africa and tribal religions in Asia? What about that? You know, I personally think, okay, I understand that the coronation itself is very Christian. I accept that, and it's very sacred to a lot of people. And, you know, but what people need to realize is that this is a very diverse country, and it is a very diverse Commonwealth. And it's very different to, say, for example, if we were in the 17th century, or say, for example, if we were in King George VI's coronation, which I believe was 1937. And then even when we get to the Queen's coronation in 1953 or 54, you know, the country is very different and the world is very different. And even our access to the coronation itself and people being able to watch it in a larger scale on social media, on TVs around the world, is far larger than when it was in 1954. So people are going to have so many more eyes on what is going on here in this ceremony. So not only do we have a very different population in our country and in the Commonwealth than we did in 1937, 1953, 1954, or even the 17th century. And not only do we have a different population, but we also have a different audience because there is so much more access to people watching the ceremony and what their expectations are going to be and their understanding of this ceremony. And also the role of the church and the role of Christianity in this country. Yes, Christianity, is the Church of England is still a state church. I get that. But let's say, for example, in the 17th century, the role of the church was completely different than it is now. Can we still say that this is a Christian country? Because in my view, this is a secular country. And in my view, I've seen statistics that have suggested that Christianity is no longer the majority religion. So then the royal family get into a bit of a problem, right? Because this is now a chance to modernize yourself. There was a lot of goodwill that went with the Queen. And the Queen obviously was coronated at a different time. But then she carried a lot of goodwill with her. And a lot of people, I think, were willing to turn away from certain things, like her being, very Christian and Christian principles and a Christian leader. And, people were able to look at her as the grandmother of the nation rather than, oh, here's this Christian lady that's ruling over my country. It was more like, oh, she's the grandmother of the nation, she's the head of state, blah, 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 blah. But I think now that everyone is starting to question the role of the royal family, given that we're now having a new monarch and a new head of state. I think this is a chance for the royal family to modernize like King Charles wants to, and to be more inclusive, because he wants to show that he is the head of state and he is the leader and the grandfather and the representative of all of his subjects and not just a few. And that is a very key thing, in my view, as a millennial, for the royal family to grapple with. Because if they don't grapple with the fact that, if they don't connect with all of their subjects and say, there is a place for you here within the coronation, there is a place for you in the representation of the royal family, then I think he's going to come into a problem. I think the royal family are going to come into a problem in the future. And there may be a question as to the legitimacy of the royal family's position if the majority of the country do not feel that they are included, or that this applies to them, or that this represents them, right? They don't feel a part of this coronation, or they don't feel a part of the royal family in terms of being represented by them. So I think they will come into a problem. But at the same time, a coronation is uniquely Christian, because you don't have that necessarily in, for example, Islam. Do you have that necessarily in Judaism? Do you have that in Hinduism? And frankly, very orthodox or very conservative people within different religions are not going to want to embrace the coronation or embrace the ceremony, knowing that it is mainly Christian. And even if it wasn't mainly Christian, the concept of a king being coronated and being, anointed by God as then the supreme leader of the Church of England, that the whole concept of that is what is fundamental to a coronation, what is fundamental to a monarch, a monarch being a monarch. They are anointed by God. So that whole concept flies in the face of many fundamental beliefs of other religions. So, you can't just say, come on, guys, and come and read out some prayers. You can't just say, I'm now the supreme leader or the supreme defender of all faiths. You can't do that, because you don't have the authority to declare yourself as the defender of these other faiths. It doesn't work like that. There is no doctrine within their own religions that say that you have that divine right, or that you even have that right on any basis, on any theology, or, politically or legally. You don't have that authority to say that you are the defender of these other faiths, particularly where within those faiths there isn't a role of a king or a queen or a monarch. or, a monarch of England. It doesn't match, right? It's not a historical correlation. It's not mutually exclusive. Whereas in terms of the Church of England, Church of Scotland, it is mutually exclusive. And when I say mutually exclusive, I mean the monarch and the Church of England, the monarch and the Church of Scotland. But you can't then apply that to Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and so forth, because that's not the theological fabric of that religion. They do not have a monarch, and they do not swear allegiance to a monarch, right? So obviously their citizenship, they're British or they're part of the Commonwealth, and their head of state is the king, and they have a national anthem, and the national anthem says God save the king, and they can do it that way. But in terms of the religious faith, it's not about you as the leader or the defender. So I don't think he should be saying, I'm the defender of all faiths. What he could say is that I am the defender of all people who have different faiths. And that's important because it should include his subjects who do not have a religion. So therefore, he is the defender of everyone, of all of his pupils. So therefore, he is the defender of the people. He's not the defender of the faith, but he's the defender of people who have different faiths. Okay, it's not his duty to defend all religions around the world because he doesn't have that authority. So he can say, though, that he's the defender of all his subjects and acknowledge that all his subjects have different faiths. And then in terms of including other people in the service, if other leaders are comfortable, and I understand that that there are different leaders who have attended different other ceremonies, so they are comfortable to attend the church. And if they are comfortable to attend the church, then perhaps they should do like a homily, like a reading, not a prayer reading, but just a message of love, compassion, whatever it is, teaching, new beginnings, something that matches the message of their faith. And frankly, you will find that the message probably is the same for all of the faiths. Like compassion and forgiveness and charity and empathy and brotherhood, and you'll find that the messages are actually the same. The religions are far more similar than they are different. So if they would like to come and do a little speech, then great. I don't think they should come and read their own prayer, and I don't think that they should come and read a Christian prayer. I don't know if it's suggested that they should read a Christian prayer. I mean, that would be ridiculous. But then also them coming and doing their own prayer in a Christian temple, as it were, in a Christian ceremony, I don't know how well that would sit with their congregation, as it were, and how well that would sit with them. So I think it needs a bit more thought. I understand the intention there by King Charles, which I think is a good one, but I think that some people do have an argument that he gets a bit out of control, and we kind of need to rein it in, because there needs to be a bit more thought. Because I think what will happen is, if it just goes ahead as King Charles wants, it's going to be a mess. And I think that there'll be a lot of backlash. I think there'll be a lot of backlash either side. So I think there needs to be a little bit of thinking behind this, because when you're talking about other faiths and bringing them into a Christian celebration that is wholly exclusively and uniquely Anglican and Christian, I think that is a dangerous one. So it needs, you don't want to offend people. You want people to feel included in the celebration, and you can do that by making them feel included in the secular part of the celebration rather than the religious part. And it needs to be done sensitively. It needs to be done cautiously. And frankly, I think they need a roundtable meeting with loads of heads of religions and to thrash out some ideas. I don't think that the ceremony should be a blueprint of what it was in 1954 or what it was in 1937. It's always expected to modify. Obviously, we weren't privy to being able to see the coronation in 1937. We weren't able to see the coronations before that, because the Queen's coronation in 1954 was the first coronation that was televised. But I can pretty much guarantee that the one in 1954 by Queen Elizabeth II was modernised in many ways. And so now it has to modernise, it has to go with the times, but at the same time to keep with the tradition, because that's the majesty, isn't it? That's the interest, that's the uniqueness about the ceremony, is keeping that 1,000-year tradition, but also moving with the times. And that's a very, very hard thing to ask this monarchy to do. But they've got good people around them, and they can hire really other good people, and they need to have the right information and then be able to put forward a proper service. So yeah, King Charles, you know, he's a good man, and I wish him well. And either way, I think the coronation is going to be a blast. You know, I think people just need to take it on the chin. They need to take it for what it is. They need to take it in its historical context. People need to not be so sensitive, and they just need to use it to have a celebration for the country, for a new era, and, you know, just get on with it and have a laugh. You know, have a good knees up with your family, be out in the sun. There's going to be hundreds and hundreds of street parties and loads of merchandise, and people should just, you know, not take it so seriously and just have fun with it. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. Tell me in the comments, what do you think? What do you think? Are you from someone of a different faith other than Christianity? If you are, let me know what your thoughts are and whether they match with mine. You know, I'd really like to know. So guys, please do subscribe to my channel and like and click whatever, bell button, this, that, because it will really help me. And have a great weekend. I wish you guys a great week ahead. See you later, guys. Bye.